Good evening, Mountaineer Nation, and welcome into the Mountaineer Effect right here on Geek Gorilla TV here on YouTube. Make sure to like and subscribe to the page here. We always like to hear back from our fans if you're on the Mountaineer Effect on Geek Gorilla TV. You know, this is the odd time of the year where not a whole lot's going on. You know, recruiting's starting to pick up some for the 22 class. We'll talk about that here in just a few minutes. But the one thing I did want to bring on, finally, they have got everything finalized with the Neil Brown's new contract.
Oh, it's about time.
Yes, he has been extended to the year 2026. So originally, his original deal was set to expire in 12/31 of 24, but now they've extended him 2 years. So far, there's been some mixed reviews, some good, some not so good from Mountaineer Nation. What do you think?
I was happy to see it. I figured it would come a little bit later. I figured probably after the first quarter of this season. But the one thing that I really liked that they did was, they gave him a substantial bump when it comes to assistant coaches,
Right.
which for retention purposes is very well needed. You're only as good as your assistants. And,
Right.
That was a big investment from the Mountaineers, one they've never made. So that impressed me more than anything.
Yeah, according to the details of the contract, was an extra $1 million for assistants and athletic staff. So that means more regional recruiters. That means more recruiting dollars. And of course, we all know it does take money to recruit in college football these days.
If you're not out there recruiting and spending money to do it, I mean, you're not competing. And
Right.
West Virginia either has to dive all in or not. And I think that was a very strategic move on their behalf to show that not only are they in it to win it, but they believe in Neil Brown, what he's doing. And
Right.
I think for the program as a whole, it's going to be it was very well timed in my eyes, very well timed.
Right. I couldn't agree more with that. I mean, it looks like, we're, with the new contract and coming up with this season. I mean, I think this is kind of going to be year 3 for Neil Brown. It's going to be I wouldn't necessarily approve it year since you got the new contract, but I would say you wouldn't want to see another step in unquote unquote decline.
Yeah, and I think as we discussed, getting an 8-win season, which I think they're very capable of doing, is the next big step. We've talked about their schedule a few times, their winnable games and things like that. And, looking at what they look like during spring ball, which you can't really read a whole lot into spring ball, but, we saw some really interesting things during spring ball. Something that did impress me during the Golden Blue game, JERD looked pretty good.
Yeah.
He looked to me like he'd really been working on some of his throws. He actually looked decent to the boundary. Like I said, can't read too much in the blue and gold games, but his throwing mechanics looked far improved from last year to this year.
And I also think, one thing I was looking at too during the blue and gold game, he would go through his, progressions quicker, and he seemed like he would want to get, if nothing was there, tuck it and run, which we both haven't seen that before out of him.
Well, I think, in retrospect, I think we were, I think I was a little hard on him last year, about throwing to the boundaries. The thing is when you've got receivers that are dropping balls like they did last year, that does affect your throws because you're expecting them to drop it. And so you may put a little extra on it, take a little extra off of it, maybe a little low, a little high, try to taper it for each receiver. And then when they're just dropping it, you just kind of miss your throws. So
yeah,
hopefully with some of these guys that they've got in there, that, they seem like they've really upgraded some of the receivers.
We all seen, Bryce Ford Wheaton looked really good in the spring game. And of course, Riley Simmons in the slot looked really good. And also, not to mention, our new star in the making, Caden Prater, looked amazing catching a couple bombs there. So, I mean, I'm really thinking, even though he's a true fresh or a redshirt freshman, I mean, there's a chance that he could definitely get in and, make some noise this year.
Yeah, for sure. And I was also impressed with Garrett Green's arm. He threw a 60-yard flat foot bomb that
Mm-hmm.
just, I mean, was on a dime. That really impressed me. When you learn to see little things like that. I mean, that was a very, very impressive throw, and he hit Prater in stride for a touchdown. I mean, it was
Yeah,
it was a very nice catch and throw.
right. It definitely was. I mean, you can't throw it much better than that. I don't see it. I don't see how we could do that. But looking at the schedule now, who else we have coming up in weeks 3, 4, 5?
Week 3, you've got Virginia Tech, which we've talked about that a lot. And then
Yep.
week 4, you've got Oklahoma. I'm on the Oklahoma train this year. I feel like they're gonna be in your Final Four. I think they're gonna be one of the best teams in the country. They're returning big percentage of the roster, and I feel like if they'd had their whole team all year last year, they'd have probably played for a national championship as well. Spencer Rattler, he made a lot of progress. Like him or hate him, he made a lot of progress last year. I think that game's, is going to be a little out of reach for West Virginia, but then you come back in week 5 against Texas Tech.
And that game, is kind of a trap game for us because you're coming off an emotional, loss, more than likely an emotional loss to Oklahoma. I mean, it's going to be. I wouldn't necessarily say it's going to be ugly, but I don't foresee us being very competitive in that game. Texas Tech, I think we can beat Texas Tech. I think we have enough offense and enough defense to beat Texas Tech this year, and it's going to help. It's going to be in Morgantown, so.
Yeah, I mean, being at home helps a lot, and that's another thing with Oklahoma. It's at Oklahoma. I mean, it's probably, I haven't looked at Oklahoma's schedule, but it's probably their first real big game of the season, I would imagine too. So they're going to be out for blood. I'm with you. I don't think it's going to be very pretty. I think it's going to be a very hard game to watch. But once we get Oklahoma behind us, I love that we're playing them early in the season.
Yeah.
Because then we can put them behind us. We don't have to stare at that anymore. And then you've got Texas Taylor, Baylor, and TCU, 3 games that West Virginia, they should be able to win all 3 of those, at least pick up 2 of the 3.
Yeah.
Before they move into the final quarter of the season.
Yeah, I don't foresee that Baylor having much. TCU might be a little bit of a, they've always kind of been either on or not. I mean, I think that's a coin flip for us there. But all in all, I think out of the first 6 games, I would say we should be at least 4-2. It's all going to depend on how that Virginia Tech game is going to go.
Yeah, I mean, you just, like I said in a previous cast, I mean, Virginia Tech's going to be throwing the kitchen sink at West Virginia. They really are. I mean, that's a game that could save Fuentes' job. He's gonna do everything he can to win that game.
Yeah, and I think
that's just the way it is.
Yeah, it's going to be a different Virginia Tech team we've seen in years past under him. He's going to be playing with his, he's no longer playing with house money anymore. He's actually playing with his money now, and I think that's going to be a very difficult game for the Mountaineers. In retrospect, I think it's going to be a bad game. It could be a coin flip. It could go either way. Maryland and Long Island University. We was talking last time. I don't foresee them being, very much trouble. We should pick up 2 wins there. Oklahoma and West Virginia early on is going to be our first, 2 toughest teams early on in the season. We want to thank you so much for watching and taking along here on this journey right here on Geek Gorilla TV on YouTube. I'm Marcus Dean, and that's Sam. Let's go Mountaineers.